because as for example, I saw Dr. Rauf just now and a few other names, right? Okay. Okay. Can I share my slide now?
Can, Doctor? You can proceed.
Okay. Okay. My name is Nolaila Matzin. Can you all see the slide?
Not yet. Okay, Doctor. Almost done. Okay, clear.
Okay. I've been introduced by Idayu just now, so I think there's no need for me to introduce about myself further. Okay. When we want to conduct research, usually we will think about whether we want to do qualitative, quantitative, or mixed method, especially for a novice researcher, right? For an experienced researcher, usually they would have in mind whether they would do a qualitative, quantitative, or both method, right? Okay. So we are not going to delve further on quantitative today because our sharing is more on qualitative. But basically, quantitative, it gives emphasizes on quantification, as well as sometimes we would come up with index ranking, and also there should be generalization. Okay, sometimes, especially if we have, if time is on our side, we want to do mixed method. Mixed method is whereby we triangulate both the qualitative as well as the quantitative. Okay, for mixed method, we can do either comparison, whereby we compare the result from qualitative and quantitative, or we could complement, whereby first we do the qualitative and then we later do the quantitative to support our result, and vice versa. Okay, there are a few fundamental differences between quantitative and qualitative. Basically, we would look at the, in terms of principle orientation to the role of theory, whereby for quantitative, we look at from the deductive point of view, whereas for the qualitative, we use inductive generation of theory. Okay, and then in terms of epistemological orientation, quantitative, usually we refer researcher who conduct quantitative as positivist, and for qualitative researcher, we refer to interpretivist, right? And then in terms of ontological orientation, we for quantitative, we look at we focus more on objectivism, and qualitative, we look at on the constructionism. Okay, you don't have to worry about this yet. This is very basic. All right, now we want to know what are the qualitative research. Okay, Mariam in 2001, page 5, she said that qualitative research is considered as umbrella concept covering several forms of inquiry, right? That helps us to understand and explain the meaning of social phenomena with as little disruption of natural settings as possible. Okay, if you notice, I have make the font, red font in some of the words. This is what we are going to look at later. All right, and these are the important keywords in qualitative. Okay. Qualitative research is premised on 5 philosophical assumptions, which are ontology, axiology, rhetoric, methodology and epistemology. Okay, for the experienced researchers or qualitative researcher, this is, I think they have come across this many times, but for the students or for quantitative researcher, maybe this is the first time or the very first few times that you have come across this. Okay, so I want to know, what does it mean by ontology? All right, okay, ontology, it refers to what is the nature of reality. So here, we want to look at what is reality, because reality is subjective. Okay, since reality is subjective, we, the researcher, have to find meanings. How do we give meanings? We use quotes and themes, but the quotes and themes are in the words of participants, not our words. Okay, next one. The assumption is on epistemology. What is epistemology? This relates on the theories of knowledge and perception and how it influence us, the researcher, and as well as how does it mold our research design. So we have to determine our epistemology first before we decide to go further in doing the qualitative research. Okay, next one is rhetoric. Okay, what does it mean by rhetoric? That is the language that we use, the researcher use in our writing, which is more personal. It's in narrative style. It could be sometimes, if you have ever come across a report or qualitative findings, or you have read a thesis in qualitative, you might come across the word we, I, right? Okay, for example, in one of these theses in balance scorecard, the researcher, he, throughout the thesis, he mentioned about that he refers to himself as I, right? Which is more personal. Okay, next one is the methodology. Okay, this is the process of research in terms of when we collect and analyze our data. This involves continuous revision of questions so that we can find emergent issue. Right? Hello? Is there any question? I've heard somebody, I think, do you want to say anything?
Not yet, Doctor. Just now they have
okay.
technical error about the slide.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. The last one is, in terms of philosophical assumptions, is axiology. Axiology, it refers to the values that we use in our research. Okay, after we have making our choice of assumptions, we will shape our research based on the paradigms or worldviews. So what is actually paradigms or worldviews? Okay, paradigms and worldviews that is how, or a set of beliefs that guide us in our research. Okay, now we have 5 paradigms or worldviews, but Creswell, he focused only on 4, right? But however, I put in my slides, I got this from other books also, whereby we have 5. Post-positivism. What is post-positivism? This one, usually we can relate to researcher who has prior quantitative research training. If you notice the word post-positivism, meaning that the researcher previously had done research as a positivist, right? Okay, here their report usually in the form of scientific reports, which are very structured. with numbers, with charts, and so on. All right, next one is social constructivist. This one rely much on participant views. Okay, this one usually the researcher, they try to develop a subjective meanings from the participants' view. Okay, at constructionism, this one is more on interpretism, and then number 4 is advocacy or participatory. Okay, at advocacy or participatory, this is more suitable for reform. For example, if we want to have a law reform, or we want to expose the marginalized group, for example, in order for us to discuss about poverty group. Okay, next one is pragmatism. Pragmatism, we focus more on finding solutions to the problem. This involves multiple methods of data collection. It could be in terms of quantitative and mixed with qualitative. Okay, the question is now, which paradigms or worldviews that we want to follow? Okay, actually, in reality, we can combine, or we can just choose one, or we can combine any of the worldviews. Okay. Next one is the categories of qualitative research. Remember just now we mentioned that qualitative research is an umbrella. So what are under the umbrella? We have narrative research. We can also have phenomenological. We can have grounded theory. We can have ethnographic as well as case study. Okay. In terms of narrative, this is a study of stories of description of a series about events or human experience. The researcher just narrates the stories of an event. Okay, phenomenology. Describe the meaning of human experiences by reducing them into a central meaning. Okay, maybe we can relate to the our current situation with COVID-19, right? Maybe if we want to do research using qualitative about COVID-19, we might use phenomenology, right? Okay, next one is grounded theory. This is the generation of theory. We want to test, or sometimes we can even come up with a new theory when we from our research findings, or we can test the existing theory to our research. Okay, next one is ethnography. From the word ethnography itself, you know that this is a study about cultural group whereby we study the meaning of their behavior, their language, their interaction, and their day-to-day lives. And sometimes, in fact, we include ourselves in the group. And some researchers, they even some researchers, they in fact stay with the groups. Maybe, for example, if we want to study how the people in Sabah and Sarawak, for example, the Kadazan people, how do they interact with each other? How do they experience their day-to-day lives with COVID-19, for example? So we should start living with them from maybe since the last few months. So we know how do they feel, what are their experience. All right. Okay. The last one is case study. Okay, case study. This is an in-depth description and analysis of a case, or it could be multiple cases. Okay, in my case, I did a case study, a single case study. Some people, they do multiple case study whereby they compare between the result of the few cases. Okay, what are the main characteristics of qualitative? Okay, natural setting. Natural setting means that we, the researcher, we study the events and behaviors of our participants in their everyday context by interacting with them. How do we interact? By interview them, by observing them, and it has to be up close and face to face. And we collect data in the field at site, right? And whereby we go to the people, we see, we hear. For example, if we want to do research on drug addiction, so what do? We have to go to the, maybe we can go to the AADK, and we meet the people there. Okay, next one. Researchers as key instruments. Okay, as key instrument, we here, as the researcher, is considered as a very important person. What do we do here? We gather multiple forms of data, but we have to do it on our own, right? How do we do it? Through our interviews, through our observations, through our study of the documents, and it has to be done, for example, for the interview, it has to be done through interview protocol, but not questionnaires, right? And we build relationship with our participants. Okay, another characteristic is inductive data analysis. Why we call it inductive data analysis? Because the information that we get from our research, from the interviews, from the observations, and so on, they are very abstract. So from there, we have to work bottom up, whereby we build patterns, categories, and themes. And we have to work back and forth. We cannot just do one way. It has to be back and forth. All right. And then participant meanings. We as a researcher must keep focus on learning the meaning that the participants hold about the problem. It's not that it's not about our meaning. It's about the participant meaning. About what do they mean by the problem? How about the issue? All right, emergent design. What does it mean by emergent design? This is this involve or we call it's not a one-time prescription, meaning that sometimes our initial plan, we cannot stick to that. We have to do some change, or we have to modify. For example, maybe our forms of data collection, we have to change. And then sometimes we have to change our interviewees because to some reasons. All right. Next one is theoretical lens. We use lens to view the studies. For example, we use the concept of culture, we look at the racial issue, and so on. Okay, interpretive inquiry. Here, we the researcher, we make interpretation from what we see, from what we hear, from what we understand. It has to be wholesome interpretations. Okay, next one, holistic accounts. What does it mean by holistic account? This one, we report multiple perspectives. We identify the many factors that are involved, and usually we sketch our finding from the larger picture. Okay, if you have noticed, in qualitative, we have the word emergent keeps coming up. Correct? All right, and then in the interpretive, there is also the keyword here. Okay, this is the caution that we have to take or we have to put in mind when we do qualitative, right? Okay, qualitative is or requires rigorous process. We need to be very thorough. We have to be careful in conducting our research, whereby we have to consider every part of the everything, and then it is time consuming. Why is it time consuming? Because we have to be present at the research site. We have to gain access, whether formal or informal. This also takes time. We have to make face-to-face interaction, and this is usually a prolonged engagement. Okay, and we have to be very patient, right? Patience is needed here because if we are not patient, then in the middle of our study, we might decide to stop from continuing the research, and we have to be patient. With passion, inshallah, nothing is impossible. Okay, as a qualitative researcher, what do we need to do? Just now I mentioned to you already all this point, right? Okay, we have to have certain characteristic whereby we have to be able to listen attentively and carefully. What does it mean by attentively and carefully? It means that we cannot what do you call that? We have to refrain from making self-interpretation during our interviews. We have to be inquisitive, whereby we need to develop a trusting leadership with our participant, right? Because if the participant is not, or the participant does not trust us, it will be very difficult for us to get the information. All right, next one, the researcher has to be reflective. Okay, and then ability to do insightful analysis. What does it mean by ability to do insightful analysis? We have to be able to synthesize, we have to be able to relate, we have to be able to connect all the information that we have gathered so that we can have emergent themes. Okay, what are the types of qualitative data that usually we have in qualitative research? It can be in terms of narrative, whereby we have field notes, diary, participants' profile, bulletin, case report, intranet, right? Okay, for example, if you do case study, you might need to get the internal circular of the company, and then you might need to get their internal document which are not sensitive, right? Okay, and then the next one is photograph. When you go to the site, you might need to take photos of your surroundings, of your people that you want to study, right? And then the photograph or the places that are related to your study. And then next one, you might want to videotape. Oh no, it's not videotape anymore. It's we might use the our handphone, right, to record or film our observation. And sometimes we get the qualitative data from our external reports. It could be from magazines or newspapers that are related to the research that we are doing. Okay. I hope you are still with me. Okay, next one. How do we collect our data? These are the techniques involved: observation, interview, and document analysis. Okay, so what are the activities involved in the collection or in the data collection? First, we have to locate our site. Okay, what does it mean by locating the site? Okay, once we have decided that we want to do a qualitative research and what type of qualitative research that we are going to do or conduct. For example, if you want to do a case study, so you have decided that the type or categories of qualitative research is case study, right? Once you have done that, you have to gain access. How do you gain the access? You can either email, you can call, you can WhatsApp. So this is where your networking is very important. And the access can be informal first, but later you have to get the formal access. Okay, next one, you have to make the purposeful sampling, right? After that, you can start collect your data, and after that, we store our data. Okay, we can store data in software like NVivo or Atlas T, right? Okay, for qualitative, usually we do purposeful or purposive sampling. And then from there, we will do snowballing technique. Okay, what is snowballing technique? It is where we identify several people with relevant characteristics and we interview them. After we have interviewed them, we get the data from them. Okay, after that, we will ask them, is there anybody that you can refer to who has the same attributes or information that you have, or the information that I need, right? This is this process is continued until a sufficient number of participants have been interviewed. Okay, after we store our data, we have to resolve any field issue that have arose, right? And then we record our information. Okay, next one is what do we have to focus in our data collection? We want to get detailed and thick description so that our findings later will be rich. Okay, next one. We look at the meaning, not frequency. Remember just now when I mentioned the meaning that the participants give, right? Unlike quantitative, they will look at the frequency. And then we have to have emic or amic perspective. Okay, what is amic perspective? This is an approach to better understand and beliefs, the customs and values of the groups that we are studying, right? That is the insider's view of reality. This is very fundamental. Okay, next one is the researchers. We have to put we have to be in the participants' shoes. And then we have to retain natural context, which means that we cannot take the participants out of their surroundings. And again, you see the words here, prolonged engagement. Qualitative will be a prolonged engagement. All right, another type of data collection in qualitative is through observation. How do we acquire information through observation? By looking. We can look at the surroundings. We can look at the people. All right, and then we listen. After we have listened, listen doesn't mean that we only listen to the participants when we interview, but we also listen to their day-to-day conversation or among each other. All right, and then we make notes. Okay, just now I mentioned already what can be observed. We observe the place, the ambience, the participants, the activities, the events, the frequency of occurrence, the duration, and is there any subtle factors? Okay, for example, in this picture, we cannot just make an assumption like that from the picture. We have to go back and maybe we need to interview the participants here, the person in this in the picture, what is actually happening. All right, and then we might need to look at the we might need to review if there is any video or audio, what is actually happened. Okay, this is an interview just now, I've mentioned already. It can involve one-to-one interviews through telephone, face-to-face, and now we even have a Google meeting and so on. It has to be, if it is a longitudinal studies, we might need to do repeated interviews. And sometimes the researcher, when they do the interview, they have to go back to the participants and check whether whatever that they have written or transcribed is correct. Okay, this is the structure continuum of an interview. Okay, usually for qualitative study, we use semi-structured or unstructured as compared to highly structured or standardized. Okay, from the interview, we want to have purposeful conversation. We want to get detailed information. Okay, the interview we will triangulate. In qualitative, we have the word triangulate, which means it's not a methodological triangulation, it's data collection triangulation. Okay, this one I have explained just now. Okay, this is very important in qualitative study. Here, we have to, similar to quantitative study, we have to have validity and reliability. For qualitative study, the reliability and validity is done through triangulation of data collection. right? And then by member checks, peer review examination, researchers' position of reflectivity, prolonged engagement, maximum variation, audit trail. Audit trail means that we have to write down all the research activities that we have take. That is why it's very advisable for us to have an audit trail when we do qualitative research. And then through thick and rich description, we will increase our validity and reliability. Okay, how do we test the validity in terms of construct validity, internal validity, external validity, and reliability? Okay, construct validity can be achieved through the multiple use or multiple sources of evidence, and we establish the chain of evidence, and also we have to have our key informants or interviewees to review our draft. Okay, in this slide, I share the quality of qualitative research from my case study. If you can see there, I have key informants, review draft, case study report. So I give my key informants to go through my draft. Right? Okay. And then for the internal validity, what do we do? In my case, I did pattern matching, I did explanation building, and also time series analysis. In what phase? I did that all in data analysis phase. Okay, to achieve external validity, we can use replication logic and through using the our choice of theory. How do we achieve reliability? We use protocol and we develop database. Okay, what does it mean by protocol? When we do the interview or qualitative research, for interviews, we have to have interview protocol. What does it mean by interview protocol? Interview protocol is not interview questionnaires. Interview protocol has broad questions on the subject matter that we want to study, and then from there, other detailed questions will emerge during our probing when we are face to face with our participants. Okay, but this interview protocol doesn't just come like that. We have to do or base it on our readings of the literature review and discuss with experts. Okay. After we have done our interview, we have to transcribe verbatim our interview. So for qualitative, transcribing the interviews really takes time. We have to listen many times because we have to go back and forth in typing verbatim whatever has been said by the participant. In my case, I like to transcribe on my own because for me, I know what happened during the interview, so I can recall back the mimic or the expressions of the participants or the interviewees, and then the intonation that they use, right? Okay, and then the transcription. Later, we will store it in in vivo or Atlas T. Okay, if you see here, data analysis using in vivo or Atlas T, actually it's not data analysis. It's actually, we use in vivo or Atlas T to come up with coding or themes for our findings, right? And then after that, we will have to write our findings. Okay, those who have experience with qualitative research, or you have read or come across writings or reading the findings of qualitative research, you might notice that usually the layout or the presentation of the writings is different from quantitative, because if we decide to do qualitative, even if we are not very good in writing, we have to develop, to have the flair of writing. We have to be the storyteller, right? But you don't have to worry because we can develop that. Okay. With that, that is all my sharing. Amira, hello.
Hello, Doctor.
Yeah. Okay, that is all my sharing. If you have any questions, if I can answer, then I'll share with everybody here.
Okay, Doctor. Thank you for your fruitful sharing. As for now, we have 6 questions in the chat. Okay, so first question from Nur Farah Liana. Okay, so in gaining access, if we need to send the proper email if we do the research in our company itself.
Sorry, you mean if the person is already working with that company?
Yes, they need to send the proper email if we do the research in our company itself.
Oh, okay. I would advise any researcher to do that, because during the Viva, if you want to do this for your study, during the Viva, you might be asked whether you have a formal permission to do the research or not. All right, and then if anything happens, then we have something to fall back. Okay, is that answering your question?
Cik Farah Liana, hello. Cik Farah.
Ya, betul. Okey. Tapi kalau kita tukar kepada ethical clearance saja di tempat kerja tu boleh ke? Kalau tempat kerja tu ada ethical clearance punya prosedur macam UiTM buat?
Tapi kalau saya lah, sebab saya ni sangat macam walaupun kita ada memang ada positif ya.
Dr. Leila, sorry, can you answer in English because we have foreign.
Oh, okay, sorry. Okay. Okay, just now Nur Farah Liana asked, can we just use the ethical clearance as what we since we have UiTM ethical clearance, correct? Whether the ethical clearance is sufficient. All right, for me, even though we have to have positive thinking, but we have to think about the worst thing that can happen, right? We don't want to be in to put ourselves in problematic situation later, right? But so I would advise you to also have a formal permission. Okay, I just share with you here from my experience, even though, okay, I did not, because I work with UiTM, so, but I did not do the case study of UiTM. I did case study with companies. All right. First, this one company, I have already gotten the permission to do the case study. I have done, I have already conducted the study about almost a year, right? But in the middle of my study, the management, the top management changed. It's not change management, but the top management has changed. They it's not the top management was changed by a new team. So I think after about 1 or 2 weeks after the change, I received an email saying that okay, you are advised to find a new company for you to do the study. They did not directly say that I have to they don't want me to do the study there, but indirectly I know that I have to find a new company. So we have to be prepared for the worst. Okay?
Okay. So for the second question from Miss Fatin Hidayah.
Okay.
So this open-ended question, structured question, is considered as qualitative research. I am doing mixed method,
Okay.
but in my questionnaire, I put the last section as structured questions. Does the findings still count as qualitative data?
Okay. Personally for me, it cannot be considered as qualitative data because qualitative, you have to have a direct interaction with your participant. Alright, even though since you are doing mixed method, I think what you can do is you have to do the interview even for a very a brief period, right? But if you just send the questions through mail or email, I think cannot be considered as qualitative yet. Right?
Dr. Laila, can I help to make some comments here?
Yeah, sure. Dr. Angeline.
Hi. You know, your interview that you say is structured questions. Your question is whether this is considered qualitative or not. I would agree with Dr. Laila that it would not come under qualitative. However, you could add on questions that are open-ended after those structured interviews, and whatever is written in an open-ended question, that can be considered as qualitative because it is asking beyond the text where your own thoughts and reflections are coming in. So that part of your questionnaire could be qualitative. And I think another area is how your data is being analyzed. If you're analyzing your data through statistically, then it has to be quantitative, because you're using a fixed stats way of analyzing. But qualitative is not a fixed way. It is a very rich and thick explanation, and you keep writing and a lot of your reflections come in. That is qualitative. So it doesn't require stats that this plus this equals that. That would be quanti. I don't know whether this helps or not. Thank you.
Yes, correct. I agree with you, Dr. Angeline. Thank you very much. It's just that in terms of the analysis, I really agree. It's just that I think to to do justice for qualitative, I think at least even though you cannot have a face-to-face interaction, at least you have to have interview through telephone, because we want to probe better. Because if you just write the answer on the questions, sometimes the participant, they just write what is come across their mind at that time. Right, that is my personal opinion. But does that answer?
Miss Fatih Hidayah, are you clear with the answer? Miss Fatin? Okay, Doctor. We proceed to the third question from Mr. Hadi Mustafa.
Yeah, hello.
How to determine the ideal or suitable sample size for qualitative study?
Sorry?
How to determine the suitable sample size for qualitative study?
Okay. Actually, there is no standard suitable size. It depends. What do you want to study? Right? Whether you want to do depth, or you want to do or you want to go wide, or you want to go deep. And it depends on what you want to study. For example, if you just want to do a case study, then you just need and then you have to decide whether you want to make to do a single case study or multiple case study, and you have to justify why you want to do a multiple case study, and or why only one case study. Right? It depends. There is no hard rule for the sample. That is why, if you can recall back just now, I mentioned about purposeful sampling. Okay, is there any other questions, Amira?
Okay, Doctor. For the fourth question from Dr. Isma Sabah. Okay, Doctor, does the data analysis for qualitative data is just only using the software like NVivo and SSCI? And is there any other method in analyzing the data besides the software itself?
Okay, please bear in mind that NVivo and Atlas T is not an data analysis software. In qualitative, there is no data a software that we can use to analyze our data, right? The NVivo and Atlas T is for us to store our data, and then from our readings of the literature, and also the findings, remember the thick and very rich findings just now? So we will in, for example, in NVivo, we have to code what are the themes from our literature, and what are the emergent themes that happen. And then from the code, okay, how do I say it? Okay, code is actually the theme, or the in quantitative, you might say that you might refer that as variable, right? Okay, from the theme, for example, in my study, I look at the findings or the transcription that I have prepared, and I store in my NVivo. When I read the transcription, I see a lot of mentioning about champion in innovation, for example. So I will read one transcription to another transcription of, is there anyone or any other mentioning about innovation, or is there any other mentioning about champion, right? So from there, I know that, okay, I have already one theme. Okay.
Dr. Kuldeep Singh, how to overcome the issue of the researcher bias in the qualitative research, since the researcher interpret the meaning of the data collected.
Okay, that is why we have to go back, and in my case, for example, we have to go back and give the draft to our participant or the interviews. What I did usually, after I have done the transcription, I'll write the summary or the important theme, and I give back to my participant to go through whether that was what they intended to say or to share, because I don't want my writing is on the meaning that I put on myself.
Dr. Laila, can I add to that as well?
Yeah.
And then you can also have your co-researcher with you as well, so that the co-researcher reads your response and was present with you and would actually recognize whether you are interpreting it along his or her lines, and that would also help. And then if there was a conflict, that the two of you could discuss it and water it down until you came with something that was acceptable to both of you. So having a co with you is also helpful to take away or to reduce the biasness, in my opinion, I think.
Yeah, you're correct. I agree with you, Dr. Angie. It's just that this one, if you are the sole researcher, right? Okay, especially if you are doing the research as your PhD or master research, but we can still go back to the expert. Maybe we have expert, maybe our faculty members, or sometimes maybe if your supervisor is well versed in that area, maybe you can discuss. And then like Dr. Angeline mentioned just now, even though the person you don't have a co-researcher, but you have other friends or somebody else who is an expert in that area or knows that area very well, so maybe you can discuss that. Thank you, Dr. Angie.
Thank you, Dr. Angie, also for the kind of explanation. Okay, so we proceed with the Dr. Abdul Rauf, and just now Dr. Noella have answered about the analysis manually without use any software for just now Atlas T and also Envivo. So we proceed to IBM UiTM Sarawak. So the question is, qualitative research only conducted a small number of participants. How to justify the generalization issues of the research?
Okay, if you can recall back, qualitative is never about generalization, right? So that is why I mentioned just now, we have to decide whether we want to go wide or we want to go deep, but it's never about generalization, because qualitative is about emerging or emergent themes, because usually when we do a research in qualitative, sometimes or most of the times there will be one or two more variable or themes that can come up from our research as compared to previous research. Okay, Amira?
Okay.
Okay, Doctor. Next question from Miss Nur Hasanah Ruslan. Can you share the tips for reflective skill, because my SB said that I am lacking in reflective when I write the result.
Okay, maybe other other audience here can also share with me your thoughts about this one. But in my experience, as a suggestion, we have to build up this skill by a lot of readings and discussion with other people who are doing qualitative, and also by our readings we need to do a lot of readings. And also that is why I said it's very important to have networking with other students or other researchers which are not from our organization, right? Because we cannot, doing qualitative research, we cannot work in silo, we cannot work alone. We have to have other people that we can discuss with. It has to, this skill has to be developed. Okay, if Ms. Nur Hasana or Mrs. Nur Hasana, if you have any, you need my sharing, personal sharing, maybe you can contact me later, right?
Dr. Laila, can I help here? Can I just add some comments?
Okay.
I think having a personal journal during your research is very helpful in this reflection, so that each time, each day, you are writing a short or lengthy piece on this is a way to develop your reflective skills. That is, after you've completed a day, you sit back and you talk about what went on, what were your thought processes, how did you feel, what were certain things that attracted your attention, what surprised you, what made you feel it was something extraordinary, or was it just a normal routine but there was something different in that routine. So you start disciplining yourself to look out for all these various corners, and in that way you are also developing your reflective skills. Now, reflective skills is something that comes over years and with a lot of training of yourself. It's not an easy skill. And many of us completed a lot of our studies without having developed this. But now that your supervisor has mentioned it, now you know that you need to be more focused on this. And like Dr. Laila says, keep talking, having conversations with other people. Conversations doesn't mean making phone calls. It could also mean your emails, your written interactions with others. But having those journals is very, very helpful. So yesterday's journal, when you read it today, what are your thoughts on that? So there are more thoughts that are being churned, and you become more and more reflective as the days go by. Does this make any sense to you? Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Angie. Okay, if you can recall back, that is why I said, I shared just now in the slide about audit trail and also field notes. So field notes or audit trail can be considered also as one of the journals. In fact, even when we don't do the research, in my case, for example, I still have journals or maybe diary or just field notes. Or sometimes if you don't have time to write in your journals or field notes, you can write even in short memos. What I always do is I'm kind of old school, old fashioned. Even though we have smartphones, I still have at least a small notebook in my handbag. So whatever that I think or anything that come across my mind, I'll just write it down. Or sometimes if I don't have the book or the small notepad, I'll just write or type anything using the handphone. And then at the end of the day, I will write what was my, in fact, now what I do is, even though this is not related to research, what I do is at night or the most is the next day in the morning, I will write what had happened yesterday or during the day and what was my feelings or what was my, how did I felt about what had happened just now or during the day, right? And then just to share from the journals or diary that I kept during my study, now I'm writing and in the midst of writing a journey about my PhD study that is very dearly to my heart. What had all the challenges, all the hurdles and what I have gained, not only about in completing my study, but also as a person. So as Dr. Angie mentioned just now, reflective skills doesn't come in a day. You have to develop it. But as a start, just write whatever that come across to your mind, either about your research or not. Because sometimes whatever you feel that day, sometimes you will have a writer's block. It's not because of your study, but actually because of something else. Right? So when you reflect back, oh, okay, I have to do this. Maybe I have to change the way that I converse with my friends, right? So that I will get more information, or they will be helping me more in terms of my study. You see the relationship, even though it's not about the study per se, but it's about your life, but indirectly it will affect our way of thinking and our way of writing, especially for us to have the reflective skill.
Hi, Dr. Nolaila. Hello.
Yeah.
Might I add to that? It was a very interesting point brought up by Dr. Angeline. But to summarize, if I could help summarize for the person who asked the question to better understand, basically, even from my experience, what you need to do is, if you get results or you read something from a journal, it's basically asking back why it is that way, how it is that way, and just keep pusing, just go around about asking that questions. If a journal says in this way, why is it that way? If a journal says it in that way, how is it that way? So you just keep asking these questions until you come to an answer that you are the answer that you are satisfied with, and that could help you build your reflective analysis in that regard. So just keep asking after you read, asking why is it and how is it. Those are the basic two questions that I rely on whenever I'm doing any particular research, and it helped me a lot during my PhD.
Thank you, Doctor.
And to add to that, may I ask to the presenter, Dr. Nolaila, ala-ala menanya kan? So I've read a few articles since I've taken an interest in teaching interventions. So some articles that I've read, actually, I believe this is qualitative because they went for observational interpretation. So what I mean by that is they, for example, did not present any metric, any measurable data, but they simply present upon taking action upon a certain teaching intervention, students responded in this particular way, students responded in that particular way, and then they continued to interpret the information based on their own observations. So I think this is due to limitations on difficulties to create a proper metric to analyze, or it could be due to a lack of foresight to determine what metric would be appropriate. And it would be a waste of data if the person, the presenter, the author did not discuss their observations. So again, what I've read in papers is that they discuss their own observations. And of course, I believe this is more towards qualitative analysis. But what's your opinion on that? Is that acceptable? And if it's not acceptable, what would be an appropriate method to cater to the lacking in information brought on by that type of qualitative analysis, other than distributing a different questionnaire?
I think because I've never done any interventionist type of research, but I think what we can do is we have to complement the data or the research with quantitative, which means that we have to make maybe after that. I believe, because I have not read this article, Dr. Muhammad, but I think what the researcher they can do is they have to come up with complementary study, maybe using the quantitative research, or they have to include other types of data collection, because just now you mentioned about observation, right? Maybe they can include with maybe in terms of document review, or maybe in terms of interview, or in fact maybe they have to do the they have to do the what do you call that, ethnography or phenomenology study. That is my my opinion on that, Dr. Muhammad. Thank you, Doctor.
Muhammad Iswan for the good sharing also. Okay, so we proceed to the next question from Ms. Nur Azhar. Salam Dr. Nolaila. I am still confused between phenomenology and case study. Both categories have experienced some sort of event or experience that researcher wants to study. How to differentiate them?
Okay, I thank you, Ms. Nur Azhar. I have never done a phenomenology study because this one is a very, how do you call that, it's very time consuming and rigorous. I don't know, maybe other audience here have done that. But in terms of case study, usually case study, what we do is we will go to the organization as compared to phenomenology. Phenomenology, usually we go to the site, for example, maybe to a kampong, right? To a group of people who are experiencing, for example, issue of illegal logging, for example, right? But for case study, okay, you mentioned here both categories had experienced some sort of event experience that, okay, right. For case study, we know that, okay, before we can choose the our sample or the company that we are going to do the case study, we have to make sure that, or we have to do some background checking that the company had had experience or had gone through the process or the experience. For example, the company had implemented management accounting system, for example. So we want to do case study at companies who had implemented that management accounting system. We cannot just go to any other company. Okay, so I'm sorry, Ms. Nur Azhar, I have never done a phenomenology study. So I cannot really share with you the details. Right?
Okay, Doctor. Next question from Ms. Dima Kama. Rhetorically or for writing the report, is it suggested to use personal language such as I or we? However, many of the SP or university itself prefer to use the researcher instead of I or we. Can we go for that?
Okay. I think it depends on our university and supervisors also. But in my case, I also use the researcher, right? But in the US especially, they are more open and liberal. Liberal, I mean, in quote unquote, yeah? Okay. So over there or some other Europe countries, they are more liberal in terms of using the I or we as compared as we in Malaysia. So it depends. Usually we have to follow our SV suggestion.
Okay, so for the next question from Ms. Nuruhuda. So what is the adequate variable to be determined in the study for qualitative study?
Sorry, I think I cannot hear.
Mr. Fuad, can you mute your mic, please?
Okay.
Okay, so from Ms. Nurul Huda, what is the adequate variable to be determined in the study for qualitative study?
Okay. Actually, it based on, there is no written standard also. It has to come from your readings and from your literature review. We cannot just say that, okay, it is adequate or not. All right, it has to be be based on our literature review, right?
Okay, Doctor. Next question from Tahir Siddiq. I'm using a questionnaire in which one last question is open-ended regarding feedback and comment in which I received appropriation 50 comments. I am going to do quantitative analysis for my questionnaire, but I don't know that how I will deal with the last one open-ended question. My question is how I should analyze the comment received in the reply of that question. Thank you.
Okay, actually I don't really understand this question. Sorry, Mr. Tahir.
I'm confused also the question.
I think maybe okay. I just is my guess. Maybe Mr. Tahir wants to know how to write the findings.
Mr. Tahir, are you in? Hello? Doctor, his line is not working.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, never mind. Okay, from the chat, I have no more question, but now I will open from in the floors if you have any question to Dr. Nolaila.
Okay, I'm sharing my email. If any of us here has any further questions or comments, or we can even collaborate in doing research, you can email me, right? At nolaila249@uitm.edu.my. If you want my handphone number, you have to email me first, yeah.
Okay, Doctor. Just now Mr. Tahir already replied the question again. How to analyze the open-ended question of any questionnaire?
Hello.
Hi, Dr. Laila. Hi.
Yeah.
Can I help with that, Dr. Laila?
Can, because I don't understand this question. I'm so sorry.
Basically, I think in Tahir, what he has done is he's got a whole list of structured questions, and the last question is an open-ended. So his question is, how does he analyze this, especially the last one, which is an open-ended question? Mr. Tahir?
Dr. Angie,
yes.
I think if you read from the, you scroll up, he said he's using questionnaire because questionnaire is on quantitative.
His question, yes, he's using a questionnaire, whereby the last one is an open-ended, which means that the earlier ones are probably on a Likert scale or something like that. That's what I can imagine. So if that is the case, that part of it can be analyzed using his instruments, whatever instruments he has in mind. You know, how many went for Likert scale 2, 3, 4, 5, and so forth. But the last one would actually be a form of triangulation, I think, because that last open-ended question, how does it reflect the rest of the questionnaire? You know, the responses to that. Does it gel or not with that or not? And if it doesn't, it's even better, because then you get to see other things in the responses, you know. And if it does, okay, so it confirms what was said earlier. Does that help in any way?
Thank you, Dr. Angie. I really cannot answer this one because I don't want to give what we call that wrong information, right? Because I think this is more on quantitative.
Mr. Tahir, don't worry, because we have another session for the quantitative research methodology.
Yeah, I hope it will help, Mr. Tahir. I'm so sorry, Mr. Tahir. Very, very sorry.
Hi, may I also add a bit to that? You don't mind?
Yeah, go ahead, Dr. Muhammad.
So from what I've gathered from my experience, I'm working with a few statistics lecturer here in the campus. One way, one of two ways that I can suggest would be you can read through the comments and try to group them into a category, into whatever categories that they may fall under. For example, 25% is positive and then 75% is negative, for example. So that could give you some data. And you extrapolate that data by providing discussion to whatever that the question is relevant to. And number two would be you just analyze them as qualitative, whereby you extract whatever answers they have and then give your own interpretation to that. That might be a bit dangerous because you are providing your own interpretation. But so I would suggest that you add references, citations to support your claims. For example, if some respondents were to say that they agree with, for example, the pollution or whatever. So you add to that certain citations and references to support your claim, your understanding of what the participants have given to your questionnaire. So either categorize or give your own interpretation. Those are the two suggestions that I can give.
Thank you, Dr. Izwan. Dr. Laila, we have a question in the chat from Puan Yasni Nurul Huda. Some research present conceptual framework for qualitative research, but some come up with the theoretical framework. Is it acceptable for the qualitative research to have theoretical framework?
Okay, in my case, I have theoretical framework that emerged from my study, right? Whereby, in my personal opinion, there is no problem with, hold on, yeah. Let me see this one. Okay, sorry. What is that one? Okay. In my opinion, there is nothing wrong with coming up with a theoretical framework because it depends on what emerged from your study, and then if that fits with the theory, existing theory, then it's no problem. In fact, one of the lecturer, a renowned lecturer in UIA, what she did is she used a institutional theory, whereby she tests the theory whether it fits with her with the company that she is researching, right?
Okay. Puan Yasni, are you in? Puan Yasni? Okay. Yes, thank you. Okay, Doctor, they have another question from the chat. Iha student. How to avoid bias and assumption in analysis write-up? Thank you,
think
Doctor.
this, sorry. Okay, thank you, Amira. I think this one we have already discussed just now in one of the above questions.
Okay, we still open to the floor to ask question to Dr. Nolaila. Doctor, they like to put the question in the chat box.
Okay.
Dr. Shafinas, oh yes.
Okay, the organizer, Amira, you can share the recording, right?
Yes, they need to, just now I already sent the Google form. They will must fill in the form, then later on we will share the slides and also the recorded session.
Okay. Thank you, Amira. And then my slides, if I will give to Amira later, yeah? After the session, inshallah.
Wait, I will share back the attendance link.
Dah habis dah terus.
Doctor, I want to share, present the slide.
Huh?
Can you end up the presenting?
Oh, okay. All right. Sorry. All right.
Petang ni. Petang ni Dekat mana yang kalau kat handphone? Saya jarang tengok kat handphone kalau orang
Okay.
Doctor, can you see the slide?
Just now I saw it. Now no more.
No more. Wait. Kita share.
But it shows here you are presenting to everyone.
Okay.
Yes.
So, okay. So this is all about the email for Dr. Nolaila. So every participant today would like to contact Dr. Nolaila can just email her. So the contact number, and here are the link for the feedback form, and also our group link for UITM Postgraduate Society. So before we end, okay, just now I found that one question from Miss, about the pages. From Miss Samia. What should be length of research methodology? How many pages itself? Dr. Nolaila, I just want to ask you, or I want to just share. I think about this one, maybe it related to our study itself. Is it true? So it depends for our research, and it will affect the pages for our research write-up. Is it?
You mean the writing of research methodology?
Yes. It will affect
Okay.
the pages. I think.
No,
Yeah.
Okay. It depends if we are doing qualitative research, then as long as we have just all the justification, because especially for qualitative, everything that you do, you have to justify. You must give justification. As long as you give the justification and your supervisor is satisfied with your justification, then it will be sufficient already. But for example, it has to cover why you choose qualitative, why if you decide to do case study, why you do the case study, and you have to if you want to do a single case study, then why you want to do single case study. Everything must have justification. You cannot just say, okay, I want the researcher decided to do the case study because it is very convenient for the researcher due to the place is nearby to the researcher's resident. No, it cannot. Right?
Okay. Thank you, Doctor. Okay, I think, is there any question more in the chat? No. Okay. So Doctor, yes?
Sorry, Amira. Okay, before we end the session, I would like to apologize if I did not fulfill your intention today, because I'm saying this is only a sharing session, right? I'm no expert here. There are a lot of experts in our session today, actually. Right, and thank you very much again for your attention, to all the participants' attention, and also to IPSIS as well, to the postgraduate UITM.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Nolaila. Alhamdulillah, we get a great feedback from our participant today. Full house in Google Meet and also live streaming. Okay, so I hope, thank you for the fruitful and also insightful knowledge. I hope everybody can use it in the knowledge in your life being in your PhD journey and also for your master journey. Inshallah, later on we will have another session with another impressive topic. So the coming webinar session next coming Friday, 11 September. And also don't forget to fill in the Google form. And I would like to thank also to thanks again to Dr. Nolaila for beautiful talk today, and also Dr. Angeline, Dr. Izwan, Dr. Wan Zumusni, and also Dr. Kuldeep for their sharing. Okay, so I hope we will have and we will meet in our next webinar session, inshallah, this Friday by Professor Dr. Nozaidi. Thank you.
Thank you. Assalamualaikum.
Salam. Thank you, Doctor.
Waalaikumsalam. Thank you.
Thank you. So can I leave now, Amira?
Can, Doctor?
So if you like to
Bye.
our group, you can.
Thank you, Doctor.
Okay, so if you like to join our UITM Postgraduate Society, you can just scan the QR code for our group in the screen. Okay, thank you. Patutlah tak ada bila punya data stop. Kita nak balik. Orang tak boleh nak tengok pun. Orang kan buat benda lagi sana. Lain tak ada. Tak, meet tu on balik. Kita screen on. Kerja balik. Patutlah bila kita pasang ni. Tak ada pun. Boleh screen record. Okay lah. Kita tak ada. Makasih. Ini recording.